Hello Trekkies and Trekkers. Welcome to this amazing Star Trek podcast on Trek Tuesday. I'm your host Orinda, and together with my fellow Trekker from Canada, Amanda Humper, I recap every 2 weeks an episode of Star Trek TNG. All the episodes will be recapped in chronologically following. Today we are recapping the episode Who Watches the Watches. But first, a note of the host of this podcast. I would appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. The Enterprise, under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard, arrives at the planet Mintaka 3 to resupply and repair a Federation outpost being used to monitor the Mintakan people, or Proto-Vulcan race near a Bronze Age level of cultural development. The outpost is built into a side of a cliff and camouflaged by a holographic projection of a rock face. As the Enterprise provides assistance, the projector malfunctioned and the outpost became fully visible. Lyko, a Mintakan, sees it and attempts to approach, but suffers an electroshock that causes him to fall off the cliff and sustain critical injuries. When the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Crusher, rushes to provide aid, she realizes the injuries are too severe to treat at the scene and has him transported to the Enterprise for treatment despite the action violating the Prime Directive. Lyko becomes conscious and witnessed everything occurring around him, and focused on Picard giving instructions. Dr. Crusher is able to heal Lyko and attempts to wipe his memory of the incident before returning him to the planet. First Officer Riker suggests that he and Counselor Troy disguised themselves as Mintakans in order to search for Palmer, a missing member of the anthropological team, and to monitor Lyko, to make sure the memories wiped worked. They discovered, to their horror, that it did not, as Lyko recalled an image of the Picard and his convinced other Mintakans that the Picard must be their god. Troy and Riker try to dispel the myth of the Picard, which gains traction until a hunting party arrives with the delirious Palmer in tow. While Riker provides a division telling the clan that another like Palmer is heading for the caves, Riker ties up an elderly man who was left behind to keep an eye on Palmer. He and Palmer flee to the area and escape back to the Enterprise. The Mintakans capture Troy and consider killing her to modify the Picard, leaving Picard to take steps to rectify the situation without further violation of the Prime Directive. He transports Nuria, the leader of the village where Troy is being held, to the Enterprise and attempts to show her that he and the rest of the crew are mortal, including having her witness the death of a crewman in sickbay. Picard returns with Nuria to the surface in the middle of a thunderstorm, which Lyko has taken as a sign of Picard's anger. Nuria attempts to reason with Lyko, but he demands first-hand proof of Picard's mortality and aims at him with a bow and arrow. Picard insists that Lyko should shoot if the only evidence he will accept is Picard's death. Lyko fires, but his daughter shows him so that he only wounds Picard. Seeing him fall and bleed, Lyko and the others come to accept that Picard is not a god. Picard and Troy returns to the Enterprise, and after he is retreated, Picard returns to the surface one last time and explains to the Mintakans that the Federation will remove the outpost and allow them to have developed on their own. Before Picard leaves, Nuria gives him a Mintakan tapestry as a gift. So, guys, welcome back, Amanda. Hello, Amanda.
Hello. Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. It's freaking hot out today. It's hot as usual. What else is new during the summer and whatnot? And as you know, in a couple of weeks is my birthday on the 15th of August. I will be 43. God, I'm going to be old.
How was the convention you went to?
What?
How was the convention you went to?
Convention.
Didn't you
Which
do?
convention are we?
Didn't you do the Doctor Akun cosplay again? But you changed something you said.
I don't remember what that was.
Okay.
I don't think there wasn't really any conventions.
Okay, I can't remember which then as well.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't remember anything about that. Huh. Whatever.
well, let's start with the recap. The Enterprise is going to Mintaka 3 and they are going to assist the scientists and anthropologists to because their hologram of them being um, camouflaged is more or less broken, and there was something else what was also broken. And you see that the Enterprise is about 13 minutes from the planet, and yeah, they have to be there faster because there are all explosions, etc. And yeah, so they needed they would be there in like 30 minutes in on warp 7, and now they, because of the explosion, they went warp 9. It's yeah, how to say this is just like the awaiting beams down, and then they discover what was going on, and we see the initial villages there, and they look, the first thing I was thinking, hey, they look like Romulans or Vulcans.
Yeah, like they almost look like yeah, I kind of agree. They almost look like mixture of Roman slash Vulcan natives from way back before they got equipment to fly.
Yeah, and they were very like a bronze civilization, like just and but for that civilization, if you see the bow and arrow, the bow looks especially a lot of the bow and arrow you find now. It was very modern in a way.
Yeah.
So this girl OG and her father were by the sun. What's it called?
Sundial.
Yeah, and they saw this particular part of the science station. Or her father went for investigation. He went to investigate it, and when he saw those people, and of course the away team, and Riker wanted to I don't want to say explain, but want to make first contact with him. And the father was being electrocuted, and he fell down from the mountain, and Dr. Crusher ran down, and she constated that she needed to bring him to sickbay because he was too much injured.
Hmm. Like he probably broke a bone or two when he fell all the way from the top of the hill all the way to the bottom. He probably broke like his wrist, or he could easily broke his back. Like he could have broke his neck from that landing. So Dr. Crusher decided it'd be wise to take him back just to make sure he was fix him up.
Yeah, and it was very, how can I say this? Very shocking for the girl because she didn't
Yeah.
understand what's happening to her father.
Yeah, she thinks they're like gods and goddesses type deal, thinking that they're being abducted by their gods.
Eventually, Jodie got the power on and the station was cloaked again.
Hmm.
But for the people who saw this, so that was only OG and her father, it was a big shock. And you see that also when her father was in sickbay and he woke up, and the only thing he saw was Picard giving orders, and they totally messed up the whole Prime Directive.
Oh yeah, because that's when her father started believing that Picard was a god, like the head god, basically.
Yeah, and also like, yeah, just it is not what, and you see that what was a bit weird. And it reminded me of Men in Black, to be honest. Picard said you have to wipe his memories.
Yeah,
And
neuralizer.
yeah, but like, but it was so uncharacterized for Beverly Crusher. And she said, well, that is more Dr. Pulaski's area. But I was thinking, what does Pulaski with wiping memory? And that was just weird. Yeah, I think there are a lot of problems what they had in this episode. Don't you think?
Yeah, there was a few problems. Trying to convince them that they're not sorry, that they're not gods. They're just regular people to them.
Yeah, and yeah, they were just advanced in technique,
yeah.
etc.
Picard's trying to say to her, we're not gods. We're basically just more technologically advanced. That's how I figured he was trying to explain to her. And I guess he takes her to sickbay too to prove it to her that she was not a god, because he can't bring people back from the dead and whatnot. Right.
So Dr. Crusher sedate him and beam him back to the planet. But the mistake was already made, because then Riker and Troy, first of course they have this senior meeting, and they were thinking, okay, what do we need to do now to minimize the damage what we already done for the Prime Directive. So Riker had a proposition, and he said, okay, me and Diana will beam down and check it out, what if his memory is still intact or if it is wiped, and his then they will also take a look for Dr. Palmer, because Dr. Palmer went missing. And later on, we see also that the head of the science team or anthropologic team, he was very anxious, because he said, well, you need to find him. He maybe can be wounded, and the harm is already there, so just get him out of there. And Picard was really in this fight of, what do I need to do? Don't you think that Riker was looking very weird in this Manataki features?
With the short hair.
No, but I mean his face. That was so weird.
They did to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deanna's was the same way.
Yeah, but she was okay, I think. But Riker was really weird.
Yeah. And it just, when you looked at him, it did not look like Riker. You could barely tell it was Riker, but you knew it was him. And what was it Deanna said to him? I forget what it was. Something about women make all the calls or something like that.
Yeah, there was something that she said. And but you could see that as well, that apparently the women were a lot smarter than the men over there.
Yeah. That's true.
So...
And then Riker's face, I guess, lights right up with a big grin, I think.
When they get to that house, we hear the man talking about what happened to him. And, that is what she did. Troy compared the Mintakas as with Vulcans. And it seems that they are pre-Vulcan.
Ah, yes. They're pre-Vulcan.
And so he was talking to the people and said, well, this and this happened to me. And right away, you could see the faces of Troy and Riker. Oh, fuck, we are screwed. We are screwed.
Yep, that's the face of Riker Troy. They're like, yeah, we're a bit fricked. We're screwed. We can't talk our way out of this one right now.
No, and they so they noticed that his memory is intact, and Troy came between them and said, well, you have an interesting dream. And then he said, well, my daughter OG saw it too. And you found my daughter, so then you both have the same dream, and blah blah blah.
Oh yeah.
And
they're persistent. And he was like, this was no dream. I saw everything. Like he was persistent saying it was no dream.
Yeah, and I saw the Picard, and he is a god, and whatever else more what he was saying. I have no idea, but okay. In the meanwhile, Riker was looking for Palmer, but at the moment, the Mintarka's guards, they found Palmer, and Palmer was out, so almost out of the world. They were, I don't know, I didn't like how they treated visitors like that. They were very cruel and aggressive towards Palmer while he was half knocked out. Troy was distracting them by saying, there was another team that is in the cave, so you need to come with me. So Riker could get him out of there and beam safely back to the Enterprise. Well, that was lucky because they could. But they blamed Troy because they thought Troy and Riker were cooperating with each other, and they would be mad. They made the Picard mad, and so they wanted to punish Troy for it, so they don't get the blame and they will not be harmed.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was just the moment that the villagers wanted to catch Riker and Palmer, and then you see this crossbow that was very modern for my taste.
And I think, wasn't there also like a storm showed up and he's like, oh, this is a sign that the Picard is angry, he said.
Yeah, and
because of the storm.
They believed in the old ways, what they saw, and well, yeah, like I said, I didn't like how they were against Palmer and Troy and Riker, and now they wanted to punish Troy. Then Picard, because they were listening to this whole thing, because of that, I think they had some kind of a communicator in their skin, so they...
Yeah, they mentioned that there was a communicator implanted on their body so they could keep in communication without the Mintakans knowing about it. So that's how they were listening in.
Yeah, and that's why Troy, they ask her questions, but she can only answer with you know?
Yes.
And
yes.
But Riker knew right away when it was a yes or when it was a no. And I was thinking, so you do know Troy as a lover and as what she meant. What was in one way very sweet. So Picard said, okay, Data, scan for Nuria. And Nuria is one of the females that is the leader of that civilization in a way, of in the village, what they were. And, you know, it reminded me, the whole rock thing and how they lived there, it reminded me of the, like, people in Peru, Colombia, that from South America. That reminded me of.
Yeah, they living inside the rock faces of the mountains.
Yeah, they have caves.
I vaguely remember that now. Yeah, living in the cliff faces of the mountain without having to do much construction.
Yeah,
and so had, like, steps leading up.
And there was a moment that Picard tried to explain that they were mortals, but also Picard told her, well, we once were like you, and we taught ourselves from going from the cave, we building huts and then houses and then better houses, and then we made starships like these. And I remember that she was very flabbergasted how the Enterprise could fly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think in one way, but, you know, I thought that this episode was more that episode with Wesley Crusher, that he went to the planet and he did something wrong and he didn't know, and they wanted to kill him just because he did something wrong. But that was the episode Justice, So I knew it
Oh, yeah,
wasn't.
that one.
So I knew immediately in that way that it was this episode. But there was a lot of things that were comparing with our civilization. So now we are back on the planet, and they are all convinced that Troy is guilty, and because of if Picard was real, Picard will bring her back from the dead. So the father was aiming at her to kill her, and at that moment, Picard and Nuria beamed down.
Yeah.
And that was still before Picard showed her that they were mortals, and show her at that moment that one of the doctors was dying.
Yeah.
And that she that it wasn't that they were immortal, so they should have understand that also they could bleed and could die. And
just say in the infirmary, she's like, "Can you bring her back? You're the great Picard," or something like that. She said.
Yeah, and we see that also when Picard was beamed down, and the father said, "Well, my wife died 6 months ago. Can you get her back? I will do everything for you, and I will even trade you for it with my life." And Picard was saying, "No, no, no, I'm not mortal. Or I'm not immortal. I'm not God. So rise." But he didn't believe him, and he also wanted to kill Picard to see if he was a god or not. And then he aimed on Picard, and Nuria wanted to stop him, but Picard said no. If he sees that I'm mortal, then he will believe it. And so the father shot, but OG, his daughter, pushed him. So it was not deadly, but it was just a shot above the heart.
Shoulder.
Yeah.
Just above his his heart's more like a pacemaker though, isn't it?
Yeah, so, that's correct.
Even if it probably still would kind of do some damage to it if it did hit the heart.
Yeah.
But it hit above it.
So, I think that was also the moment that he realized that Picard was mortal.
Yeah. We saw the blood, he was like, "Oh, crap."
Yeah.
He is not a god. He is human.
So, Picard beamed up again, and Crusher was treating his injury. And so Picard gave Geordi the assignment to lead a team to dismantle the science station. Yeah. And before they got everything down, Picard beamed down again and showed the people what was really there. So that was another proof. Well, I can imagine that if you are that primitive and there are people who are more advanced in technique and etc., that you would be... I think you will find it very weird that a civilization as they have, that why would you observe how they live? And Picard tells them, well, we do that because we once was like you, and to observe you guys, it's like a mirror for us. And then they gave him something like a present to take with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what it was, but once again it reminded me from the Native Americans.
Yeah.
So yeah, then Picard say goodbye, and that is the end of the episode, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Not much I can think of, but I liked that episode. It was really good. And what it reminds me of when they're hiding in their observatory when it's all camouflage, it kind of reminds me of a duck blind when you're going hunting, but that's what it reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
Like a duck blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can see them, but they can't see you.
Yeah. But that wasn't basically.
Well, no. They were just observing.
Yeah. And I did like this episode. If I take a look at the rating of IMDb, it was an 8.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I think I will give it an 8 as well.
I'll stick with the 8.
Yeah. So we're pretty on.
I liked it.
We are pretty on one line with it. So yeah, I think we talked everything of this episode. And yeah, you guys will hear us in 2 weeks again. And yeah, till then, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you guys for listening, and join us in 2 weeks for a new episode recap. In the next episode, we will recap the episode The Bonding. I also like to tell you about my other podcast called Orinda Talks. Orinda Talks is a podcast which I talk about books, movies, and series, video games, fandoms, and other geek things. You can find Orinda Talks on the YouTube channel or the Facebook group. I also have a new YouTube channel called Orinda Reacts. On this channel I post reaction videos of history, typical British things, movies and series, books, video games, and other geek things. But of course, there's also the explanation videos about typical Dutch or Indonesian things. We will see you in 2 weeks.